Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome here. And, thanks for those of you who were able to join us this last Thursday as we did our online worship. We'll do that again this week, planned for the same time, 2 o'clock on Thursday. That was so much fun to get together and praise Jesus together. So no matter where you are right now, why don't you stand with me and let's take this time to focus on God's strength and to learn how to trust Him deeper. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. Oh, I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive. Oh, I raise a hallelujah with everything inside of me. I raise a hallelujah. Oh, I will watch the darkness flee. I raise a hallelujah in the middle of the mystery. I raise a hallelujah. Oh, fear you lost your hold on me. Yes. Oh, I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Oh, death is defeated, the King is alive. Oh, sing a little louder in the presence of my enemies. Sing a little louder, oh, louder than my unbelief. Sing a little louder, my weapon is a melody. Sing a little louder, oh, heaven comes to fight for me. Yeah. For there is power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. 'Cause you are alive. My joy rests in your peace. Grace gave my heart brand new eyes the hour I first believed. And every captive can be free. 'Cause our God overpowered the gates of hell and traded place with death itself. He is alive, alive. Our God is alive. He is alive, alive. Jesus is alive. The empty grave holds my hope each day. He is alive. Sing this out. My feet stand firm, firm on the ground. They could not hold my Savior down. For my hopes rise with every dawn. I stand alive beside the Christ, the risen one. 'Cause this is how I fight my battles. 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 Oh, this is how, yes. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Oh. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. Oh. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Oh. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Oh. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight with trust in you, Lord.
Just stay in that place of worship right now as Jake is going to continue to play. I'm going to share some words with you from the prophetic team this morning that will get your heart ready for this morning. So find a good place to close your eyes and rest. Before I share those pictures, consider this. History has a funny way of repeating itself, and you've experienced some of that lately. In your own house, you've been examining habits and routines that have been there for a long time and things that have been changing. The experiences that are occurring in the world are very new to us, but they are not new to the world. And today we get to re-examine where we're at. We get to embrace some of the choices we've made, and we're going to do this together through some contemplative prayer, through some of these images, some of these words that we have this morning for you. So get comfortable, relax, sit down, put your head back, close your eyes, let your hands come to rest, and be at peace. Listen, and allow God's hand to come and massage your heart, that you would be enlightened about who you are in this season and that you would rejoice. So imagine with me, see it in your mind that you are in a river. You're floating on an air mattress on this river. And this river now has actually become a lake. It used to be a river, but over time, parts of it have been closed off and it's become a lake. Imagine that over time, that some of the choices that we've made, some of the choices that you've made, have been pouring fresh water into this river. It's been pouring fresh water into your life, and it feels so good. Some of these choices, however, have acted a little bit like a dam. They've closed it up slowly over time, redirecting the fresh flow of God from your life. Take time now to sit in this river that you've created with God. What is good? What is floating around you? What do you love about what you see? Imagine as you are floating in this crescent, take a look around you and examine some things that might be missing, that you wish were there, that you thought would be there. Look what is floating around you that you wish was not there. What things did you used to do that were good but been lost? And you're saying to yourself, I used to do this and I loved it. Where did it go? How did this happen? Embrace some of that loss right now. Don't hide from it. Just look at it, see it, and experience it. Embrace the pain of things lost. Now you see something coming from the riverbank. It's a huge tree. It grabs your attention. It's a giant evergreen tree. And you hear a voice, and it says, look at this tree. Has it ever lost its leaves in any season? Do its needles fall down during the dry times? Does it shed its leaves like the others? As you examine this tree, it is fully empowered to thrive in any season. And just as this tree was created to thrive, so even now it is with you in this new season. What will it look like? And you see yourself in the river as you float there, and it's the river of your life. And God is with you. Embrace the hope of things you long for, things you hope to come. What do you long for? On the shores of this river, as you gaze towards it, you see the Father. You see your perfect Father, your only Father, your Creator. Just take a moment to look into His face. What do you see? He looks towards you and he's asking you a question. Can I come back? Into this river that you are in right now. He's smiling at you, so you wave him in. As he wades in, you hear the sounds of dams breaking. As you float, you feel the thrust, fresh water again propelling you downstream. His Spirit is guiding you. You feel hope. You feel joy. You feel empowered to make new choices for you and your family. You can do it. You feel a confident trust. And as you float, you notice the scenery changes. It isn't long until you're in the ocean. You've dreamt of the ocean. You've always wished you were there. And now you're there. You're floating floating and your head is back and your arms are out and there is light emanating from your heart for this whole world. This is a heart that you have. It's ready to let God guide you again. It's ready to be the sail to His Spirit. It's ready to experience the love of the Father in a new way. As you're floating, you just take one look into this ocean, and this ocean is your life. And you look to your side and you peer into the water and you see a reflection. Just take a minute to take a look at what do you see. As you peer deep, you see the diverse family of God He's inviting you to experience anew. You see neighbors helping one another and our city shining like a light on a hill. You see His light in you touching small neighborhoods outside of your city to all the communities within your area that need to borrow some of the light you have. You see yourself repositioning your life to bring healing to the world that you're in. And you see yourself being a bigger part in it all. What does that look like? When you go with the flow of the Spirit and you don't fight the current, you get the opportunity to experience the current again.
Promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You've never failed me yet. Seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe, oh, I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art, you never change. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Hello again, everybody. Good to see you, sort of. Obviously, very different still. And man, are we starting to miss you? I assume you're maybe missing us, Pastor Sonia, Pastor Chris here as well. This morning, as we turn a bit of a corner and get into the text for this morning, Mark 12. But before we do that, I want you to get the kids around because we're going to have a little contest. And maybe if you've been on Facebook, you know that the contest is coming, but you don't know what it is. Let me explain it to you. It's going to be called Troy Spotting. Troy Spotting. And so, what your kids are going to do is they are going to be watching on screen for 3 times in the service when Troy appears. Now, they don't know what they're looking for yet, so maybe get them close to the screen, and let me introduce you to Troy. This is the Troy that you're going to be watching for. There's Troy.
Ooh, that was quick.
So at different times in the sermon, Troy is going to be cruising past, and when you spot him, you get your mom and dad on the Facebook page for the church or the Facebook online group to type in a comment, "I see Troy." And the first person who sees Troy is going to get some prizes. Kids, you're going to get the Beginner's Bible. First person to get the comment in gets the Beginner's Bible.
I like it.
That's not all. Something for the adults as well. A choice of a whole bunch of books. Reverse Thunder, you can choose this one. This
Eugene Peterson.
Eugene Peterson. If you are scared about the apocalypse and all the different interpretations of Revelation and you're basically just like quite nervous, this guy will calm you down. Calm you down. He'll kind of really let you know more what's going on. So this is a good choice. We've got here The Forgotten Way, devotional. So you can choose this one. Henry Cloud's Integrity. This is like a go-to book around here when we have different things happen on the team where people are feeling overwhelmed or they're not sure how to solve problems. We go to Henry Cloud and Integrity. Dr. Henry Cloud. It's helped Chris with integrity.
But yes,
I won't go through all the books
needed lots of help.
at length. Simply Christian, Tom Wright. Heaven Invades Earth, Bill Johnson. She Still Calls Me Daddy. The title's a little dated, perhaps, but when Acacia was little, man, did this book ever change the trajectory of my parenting. If you have a daughter, let's say, who's under 15, and there's times when you feel overwhelmed with communication and you're not quite sure how to connect, how to leverage different times of the day to help, grab this and it'll help you. And then we're all familiar with soul care, but last but not least, The Act of Marriage.
Who
By Tim LaHaye,
not
same
familiar.
guy that did the Left Behind series.
Oh,
He was the theological advisor for the Left Behind series. So
Oh.
it kind of fits like the end time worries plus marriage difficulties.
Oh.
So if both of those things are on your radar, this is the silver bullet right here.
So first come, first serve.
First come, first serve.
Okay.
So
and out of
probably
the
this'll
choice of
go-
all those books, is that right?
Yeah.
You have a choice of all.
Right. So this will probably go first.
Yeah.
The next time
Yeah.
you see Troy.
I think Ray Wilms. Does he have that book, or is he just going to?
I think he co-authored it.
Okay.
Maybe he co-authored it. Let me say a few more things. Just one more thing, actually. This Monday night is often when people meet for house churches, but we're going to do something a little bit different that I'm pretty excited about. And if you're not in a house church, you'll want to join us. Watch on the PAC Facebook page and the PAC group and all our different media channels for how you can connect with this massive Zoom event. I've been really looking forward to us all connecting in the same room, so to speak, at the same time as we navigate this together. So let's make sure that that is on your radar Monday night.
That's this Monday.
This Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm getting informed.
Yeah.
As we go.
Yeah.
Real time.
Starting you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just put that on my schedule.
Maybe date to be announced on that one then, because I was all prepared.
No, you're absolutely right.
Thanks.
So you hear otherwise.
All right. Let's talk about this text in Mark that's coming up. But to set the stage, let's share a story about when you have looked for validation versus a challenge in your life. So you know what that's like. Something happens, you get feedback, and you're like, well, thanks for saying that, but like 800 people told me that it was just fine or whatever, right? So where's a place where you have sought that affirmation and not really wanted to know truth?
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay.
No.
Why do you bring that up, Sonia?
And so I was thinking about this need for validation and just the, sorry guys, I think I forgot to put this on.
Oh, yeah. It just needs this.
All right,
Okay.
green light, awesome.
Okay, so
You sure?
Okay.
let's start from the beginning.
All
Nate.
right.
Am I good?
So Sonia had just offered a really open and vulnerable confession about a really embarrassing speeding ticket, and it seems a little too convenient, maybe that your microphone
Maybe I
was
intentionally
was
muted
muted.
myself for
Yeah.
that.
Why don't you start again?
Were you looking for validation?
Yeah, I totally was. I didn't want to admit it first. But we were talking about speeding tickets and whether we have or haven't. You can be the judge of that. But we had just recently moved to Manitoba, and we were making the trek out from Neepawa to Portage. And we had this semi that was right in front of us, and it was spitting out rocks, right? And it had hit our windshield, and I was driving. So I told Rylan, I'm just going to go for it. Like, we need to pass this. It's going to be annoying. Another crack. So,
Just quick question.
Yes.
Do you normally have to ask for permission to pass?
um, No.
Okay, just check.
Definitely not.
But you just were letting him know.
yeah. I
Okay.
was frustrated at the semi, so I was letting him know I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're telling him.
I'm telling
you're
him
telling him,
I'm going to
okay.
pass this. And so I rev up a bit, I guess you can be the judge of what a bit is. And I pass him. I was like, all right, we keep going, just to see these sirens. Woo. And then it hits, like, okay, maybe that was too much. But I did feel justified in my actions because
Amen.
what would have happened? Thank you, Chris.
Nope.
So what would have happened if I didn't pass it? Would our windshield gotten another crack, right? Like, wasn't it a safer call? And we were going to this event, and I was telling the people there, and I was like, can you believe that this actually happened? Like, I got a ticket for that. I was trying to be safe, for one.
Yeah.
And they shared their opinions, and some of them I liked.
Right.
And it validated my actions that it was okay to speed that much.
Right. So you come in, and it's a worship night you were coming to,
It
right?
was a
so I
worship
mean,
night.
you're speeding to worship. Like even God understands that one, right? So you get to lay out your case for somebody. Here's my sad
Yeah.
story, and you're basically looking around the room like you are on
Yeah.
my side, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Up. Wait, how fast were you going?
You know what? Like,
You don't have to answer.
yeah. Fast enough.
You got a fast car.
Fast enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that validation. When we were talking about this, when we were getting ready to share with you at home, I was remembering when I was in my 20s, and like 4 or 5 of my friends, we all got married at the same time, and you come into marriage with like Tim LaHaye fueled expectations, and I remember talking with my friends, like, so how often a week are you with your wife, kind of like physically intimate? And they're having these conversations, and basically what you're looking at, you're trying to get validation that it's not happening for you enough, right? So,
Wow.
so you can
Yeah.
you ask one person, and they go, well, how often are you doing the dishes? How often are you going on a date? How often are you massaging shoulders? How often are you bringing home flowers? And you're just like, you're no help. Give me a number.
I need a new
I
audience.
need a number. No, I need a number in like double digits that I can go home with and be like, see, I'm validated.
Does
But
Tim
there's no-
LaHaye get into that or no?
Tim LaHaye gives you numbers.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh
Tim,
my
Tim
gosh.
gives you numbers, which is
Oh
why
my
he's
gosh.
going to be the first one
Oh
to
my
go.
gosh.
So we share these stories of validation and how we can really want something and set up the question so that we get what we want. And it's not actually a question. We came across that last week where Jesus finds his way into a trap and then out of a trap. And then again, it kind of happens with this group called the Sadducees, is how Sonia pronounces it, Sadducee.
Sadducees?
I say,
Do you pronounce it like
yeah,
that?
it's
Yeah,
like
'cause
it's,
then they
it's
sound
probably
sad.
right. Yeah.
Sadducees.
Sadducees. It's like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very
I
highbrow.
I always say Sadducee. And part of the reason I say Sadducee
Why?
is because that's how I learned when I was a kid. If you remember this, any of you longtime Packers, we'll throw in an extra copy of the Tim LaHaye book for you because this is this is going way back. I think it was one of the first Sundays, well, it wouldn't have been one of the first, but really early on. The gym hadn't been built. We had just moved from the 13th Street building here. And on Sunday nights, we had a service. And the special music was just a family would do it. So I remember people like Vange Golly singing. Some of you might know her. Our house church actually got to reach out to her. She's now older and stuck at home, and so our house church, like so many house churches, got to connect that way, and way to go, house churches. We were just so blessed by how you just cold called people, made sure they were okay, reassured them, offered to give them what they need, and our house church got connected with Vange. Anyway, Vange did a much better job than the Westlake family. When it's the Westlake's family's turn to sing, so it's my sister Sally, my sister Erin, me, my mom, and my dad, and we're all standing in a row. And we're singing the song about Sadducees. And the gist of the song is, I don't want to be a Pharisee.
Oh.
I don't want to be a Pharisee, because a Pharisee ain't fair, you see.
Oh.
I don't want to be a Pharisee.
Didn't see that coming.
And then you switch to Sadducees.
Is there actions?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to be a Sadducee. I don't want to be a Sadducee, because a Sadducee ain't
Sad?
you sad, you see.
Oh.
I don't want to be a sad, you see. And the big climax of the song is at the end when it's, I just want to be a sheep.
Oh.
Comes around that way.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Lesson in the song. And the four of us are just bopping and belting this out, except for Larry, my dad, just sitting there. And you can just, if you know him, you just know he's got like this weird look on his face, probably, just kind of looking at people.
While the singing's all happening.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And in the last verse where you go, I just want to be a sheep, this is time for Larry's line. Larry looks out at everybody, and after having been silent for about 3 minutes, does the longest, most pathetic bleating.
Whoa, that's a good one, Chris.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah.
Did they
I was
get
ready.
that?
I was
Did
ready
they
for
get that?
I was ready for the bath.
All right. So this is why I say sad you see,
Got you.
and not sad you see,
There you go.
It doesn't
because
fit in the song.
of this
It doesn't fit
painful
the song.
childhood memory. Let's learn a little bit about the sad you see
Saw juicy.
The Sadducees.
and where they go for validation.
All right, so follow along with me. We are in Mark chapter 12, and we're going to go in from verses 18 to 34. Here we go. Then Jesus was approached by some Sadducees, religious leaders, who say there is no resurrection from the dead. They posed this question, Teacher, Moses gave us a law that if a man dies, leaving a wife without children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers. The oldest one married and then died without children. So the second brother married the widow, but he also died without children. Then the third brother married her. This continued with all 7 of them, and still there were no children. Last of all, the woman also died. So tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? For all 7 were married to her. Jesus replied, Your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures, and you don't know the power of God. For when the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. In this respect, they will be like the angels in heaven. But now, as to whether the dead will be raised, haven't you ever heard about this in the writings of Moses, in the story of the burning bush? Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, God said to Moses, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So he is the God of the living, not the dead. You have made a serious error.
So maybe I'll just
Sure.
say there's a couple things there that you can elaborate on for us that are going to help us make sense of this. One is, where does this goofy scenario come from with 7 brothers, each marrying the wife? Like, where does that come from? And then why does Jesus give them what seems on the surface to be a bit of a crummy answer?
Yeah.
Like, he's got the whole Bible
Right.
to choose from. He's got all this logic he could use about the resurrection, and he seems to use this obscure stuff from the first 5 books of the Bible. So what's going on with the marriage thing?
Sure. So it's called the Levirate Law. And at that time, they had this law in place to secure inheritance, and that if a brother died, then that wouldn't be lost. And they would need an heir for it.
Okay.
Okay? So then they would marry the widow would have to marry the next brother in line to
Right, yep.
secure this.
Right.
And so this not only was a protection for the inheritance, but it was also protection for the widow. If she didn't have children, then she wouldn't have support. And so this was the way that they did it. So it seems like a random question for us in our time, as I don't know about you, but I'm thankful that this isn't the question
Does Rylan
today.
have a brother?
He does,
Okay.
yes. And so, but it worked for that time. But it helps us understand what kind of
Right.
question is this? And so this is where they're coming at from that. And what's interesting about that is, for one, Jesus points out, don't you guys know about the teachings of Moses? Now, what you need to know about the Sadducees is that they only believed in the first 5 books of the Bible. But one of them would have been Deuteronomy, which includes the teachings of Moses, the law. And this would have been there. So for one, I think that's a big sting, for one, where it's like, don't you guys, the one, you guys only say that these 5 books are it. But you actually don't really know them, right? And so that's just background for you guys to realize that these guys only held on to the first 5 books of the Bible.
Okay, so they only the first 5 books. They don't believe in resurrection. They come up with this kooky scenario, basically trying to show Jesus how silly it is, how dumb it is for him to believe in the resurrection. They're looking for validation, really, to stay where they are because they stumped Jesus. Well, if this great teacher doesn't have an answer, then we must be right. But he does have an answer.
Yeah, and they ask, whose wife will she be in the resurrection, which you just made point of. They don't actually believe that. So the whole point of this, it isn't about the law. It isn't about really which of the brothers is going to get the wife. It's really about them proving their point that there is no resurrection. And to that, Jesus replies, but you don't know the scriptures. You don't know the power of God. And again, the sting is greater when it's like if I just read this passage to you and you guys just called me on something, you actually didn't read that part.
Like you don't know the speed limit, Sonia.
Right. It was right there.
It was
on the road, 100, and you went
more reminders,
170.
I guess. Not 170.
Okay. So this is this an okay spot for me to talk about resurrection for a bit?
Absolutely.
Because resurrection isn't the main point of this. They're trying to catch Jesus by using the resurrection, but as I was thinking about this passage in the last few days and chatting over with Tamara, some of the things that we're feeling ourselves and what people are fearing and feeling and fearing, the resurrection is important that it came on our radar here, because as I was processing this, I realized that your fear level about COVID-19 and everything in life really is tied to how vibrant you imagine the resurrection to be. Because a lot of our fear about this pandemic is, what are we going to miss out on if, heaven forbid, we die or if a loved one dies? And so our fear comes a lot of times from us missing out on things. Graduations, marriages, grandkids, retirement, whatever it might be, the things that you'll miss out on if you're not here. And the belief of the resurrection, which every Christian has, and in times like this, it becomes a really something that can boost you emotionally. The doctrine of resurrection is that you haven't had the best day of your life yet.
wow.
That what's waiting for you after the resurrection is not a consolation prize.
Wow.
It's a reward. So say, for example, you don't want to get sick from COVID-19 and miss your daughter or your granddaughter's wedding because you just are looking so forward to that. What you're missing is that the promise of the resurrection is that every day is better than a wedding day. Every day is better than any day you've ever had.
Wow.
So there's not going to be any regret in this. In fact, the only reason that you like all the things you like, and yesterday I took an inventory of things. I like the smell of the wood chips when my chainsaw goes through. It was just rich and sweet. I like that Tamara was there watching me be a man with a chainsaw as the sun came through. I liked the smell of the grass as the snow's melting. I liked seeing my son fly his drone. I liked the drive. I liked joking with my kids. All that stuff I only like because it's a little bit like the real version of it that's going to come in the resurrection. So this is what you believe. So when we talk about what the Sadducees are doing with the resurrection here, they're just using it as a obscure theological idea to trap somebody. That's not what it is. For Christians, the resurrection for Christians is something that in times like this, when you're scared, it holds you because it reminds you that the best is yet to come. That's not wishful thinking. That's what you believe. So hang on to that and ask the Spirit to show it to you.
Dude, that's crazy. It pivots the whole resurrection idea, I think, of what we think it's like.
Yeah.
And it allows us to reevaluate what it's actually like right now. And even now, I'm just like, yeah, how do I see the resurrection? Like maybe I haven't seen it for its full potential of actually being a resurrection. And that's just a great way to look at it again with a fresh lens. That's cool.
My favorite way of thinking about it is to imagine when the sin falls off of me. So there's no sin filter between my fingers and what I'm touching. There's no sin on it. There's no sin on me. There's no sin on my tongue, my eyes. Everything I'm looking at is pure and holy and as it's supposed to be. And everything that I'm using to experiencing it has been renewed. I mean, you are just, there's no eye can imagine, no ear can hear, all that kind of stuff. It's all true. So we anticipate it. But we need to steer back to where the text is actually taking us, I think. And to do that, imagine as we move from the Levites, or not the Levites, the Sadducees, to this next character who comes on the scene, there's a real shift in how you would experience this if you were watching it as a movie. So when the Sadducees come, it's like Darth Vader when he walks in. It's like, bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, ba-dum,
The Imperial March.
bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, ba-dum.
So we imagine them entering in with that music?
Yes,
Is that
yes,
okay?
and a badminton racket.
So
Darth Vader has a badminton racket. So they come in and it's sinister, and then it changes to something more light or bluesy or airy because the next character that comes in doesn't have sinister intent. So you got to catch that mood shift as Sonia takes us into the next scene.
All right, so let's dig back in. So Mark chapter 12, starting at verse 28. One of the teachers of religious law was standing there listening to the debate. He realized that Jesus had answered well. So he asked, "Of all of the commandments, which is the most important?" Jesus replied, "The most important commandment is this: Listen, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one and only Lord. And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. The second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. No other commandment is greater than these." The teacher of religious law replied, "Well said, teacher. You have spoken the truth by saying that there is only one God and no other. And I know it is important to love him with all my heart and all my understanding and all my strength, and to love my neighbor as myself. This is more important than to offer all of the burnt offerings and sacrifices required in the law." Realizing how much the man understood, Jesus said to him, "You are not far from the kingdom of God." And after that, no one dared to ask him any more questions. I like how you set the tone, like the soundtrack, right? It's this complete shift that you could easily write this guy off. I was thinking as I'm processing this, and if you would have been in the crowd, you'd be like, wow, this guy's gutsy. You know, he just saw the Sadducees essentially get told, and he still thinks he can be smarter than this, and he comes with the approach, like, which is the greatest commandment? And you could easily write that off with a bad tone, right? With a negative tone of trying to trap Jesus. But then you actually see that his curiosity is genuine.
Yeah.
He really wants to know, what is the secret here, God? Like, what do I need to do? Because obviously what I'm doing, you know, I'm assuming, is not working for him, right?
Yeah.
He really wanted to know, you know, and so I love that in the sense of how when we shift and posture our hearts to that, you know, and sometimes it's a question.
Yeah. And there's something I think that happens for him that didn't happen for the other people that are observing Jesus do the same thing. So it's not always that a master teacher comes your way and you automatically recognize them and go, oh, I really want to ask them questions.
Right.
That doesn't happen automatically. There still is a humility in this person that is saying, I want to transform. I'm not coming to you for validation. This is a legit question. What is the greatest command?
Yeah.
What do I actually need to do to be human? What am I missing?
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going, now I wait in judgment to see if you're going to answer correctly. Like you're saying, there's a genuine openness here, which leaves him open to a whole bunch of things that the Sadducees can't see.
Yeah. And I think a key word in that is when we move from validation into transformation, right? He didn't come to validate, oh, I know what the most important thing is, so back me up here. And I even think of the Sadducees do this in a public placing, like kind of to speak it out loud. Like, let's make sure we're backed up so everyone knows that we're true in what we're thinking. And this guy just humbly comes asking a question, I don't sense that he was looking for the crowd to answer that or to back him up.
Right.
And even just that, like
Yeah.
the genuine humility of not looking for that validation, but that complete posture for transformation.
So you have two conversations. One ends with, and we imagine Jesus with a bit of an eye roll, like, oh, you don't know the scriptures and you don't know the power of God. And then this other, where Jesus with admiration really is saying, you're not far from the kingdom of God. We know which response we would want from Jesus. So we need to make sure we're coming to him wanting transformation, not validation. Now, validation of your identity, yes, you want to hear from him and the Holy Spirit who you are, how important to him, and all those things. But validation of your thinking and your behavior, especially where that's paralyzed you, no, we need to be open to transformation there. So, yes, identity, but behavior, no, be open.
But I even think with identity, we can still hold that validation being like, well, this is who I think I am.
Yeah.
And there has to be a freeing and letting go of those ideas for you to discover what God says you really are.
Right.
So you can come with that validation too, even there.
Yeah.
But identity is key for that process to move beyond that. Like at least I would say like into transformation. Yeah.
So, on a normal Sunday, when there isn't a pandemic that's affecting us this way, probably our primary direction with validation would be, or with transformation would be something you're facing in your life that's maybe more specific to you. And I think we can get there by extension, but there's a tendency, I think, that we can have to validate our fears in this season, where we can post something online about how hard it is and wait for the response. But I mean, I'll kind of go out on a limb here, but how would you feel if you're a parent stuck at home with kids? It's like day 5, it's really hard, and you post online how hard it is and how stuck you are, and what are you looking for? You're looking for validation.
Sure.
You don't want somebody to comment and say, you know what, I've watched you the last few months in the lobby with your kids, and if you were able to discipline them better and communicate with them better, you'd be having a better time at home. Right? We don't want to put that on Facebook. And so in our social media posts, I think it's helpful for us as a church to say, what are we looking for?
Sure.
Are you wanting transformation here, or are you wanting validation? Because we don't want to be stuck like the Sadducees are.
Yeah.
So fully love God, fully love others.
Right.
That's what Jesus tells the teacher of the law to enter into. If you want to keep that heart posture of not seeking validation, but truly enter into transformation, how do we really love God and love others?
Yeah. It's beautiful because it speaks to our fear as well. So if the question, as we're summarizing, is, I don't, Jesus, want to be somebody who just seeks validation for myself. I actually want to transform. What do I do? And he says, love God and love other people. But as relates to fear, and this is either happened in that from COVID-19 to Courage Devotional, or it's coming up, we talk about the verse in 1 John where John says, perfect love casts out fear.
Yeah.
So perfect love of God, perfect love of other people, and you won't be scared. And maybe you're going, no. What that verse means is I sit and bask in God's love for me, and then I'm not scared. Yeah, that's part of it. But it also means you need to love perfectly, or you'll remain scared.
Yeah, talk about that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, well, Jesus, when he says don't store up for yourself treasure on earth, is basically saying that if you love stuff on earth, you're going to be scared.
Yeah.
And we see some of that in the States with the silliness. Senators selling their stocks ahead of time because they're scared, but they know that it's coming. They've been briefed on it earlier. If your primary fear is about losing the things that you love that you can actually lose,
Right.
like possessions,
Yeah.
well, then you're going to be scared.
Terrified.
Your love is all messed up.
Yep.
You love the wrong things, you're going to be scared. But if you change your love, if you love what's eternal, if you love what's only ever going to get stronger,
Yeah.
what's only ever going to be eternally beautiful, then as you love that, there's just no place for fear. You got God's love coming this way, you got your perfect love going out,
Wow.
and so there's no way for
Yeah.
fear.
I love that.
And you talked a bit about some of the desperation you see in people. We use this phrase, who are only living. I get this mixed up all the time. Vertically, right? They
Yeah.
love. They've got the love God stuff good, but they don't have the love people,
Yeah.
and what that looks like for
Yeah.
them.
You know, and I think it's easy for us to get in a place of justifying that we love God and that's enough. You know, like I read my Bible, I can pray, I can do my devos, and it's a solo thing. You know, but I love how it says love God and others. And so it's actually not complete without the one or the other. So you find yourself that, oh yeah, things with me and God, great. And then there's all this chaos around in relationships, you know, and how does that work? If we're really stepping into this, if we're really tapping into transformation, what's off there? And I think it exposes it so well.
Yeah.
You know, why hasn't that love trickled?
Wow.
You know, why has it not trickled but flowed?
Right.
You know, if you really love God and love others, then you're stepping into the full transformation. And I don't think it's random that God just made this to be that way. It's because he knows what's good for us.
Right.
He knows that we need each other. It takes us out of our own perspective and say, wow, I actually need you. I need you. You know, and this love isn't complete without each other and God, you know.
That's really good.
I like that.
Because we probably know people who have memorized chunks of scripture, so let's call that it's good vertically,
Right.
but they can decimate people
Right.
with their theology. So they actually can use what God has given them, so to speak,
Yeah.
to breach relationship and damage it. And they're constantly asking for validation of their prayer life or their giftedness or the stuff that God is showing them or the things that they're writing down and all the like spiritual stuff. But on the horizontal plane, it's just a mess. Like the marriage is falling apart. People don't like to be around them because there's a bitterness so that's not perfect love. And then the other side of things, you've got people that are pretty good at the horizontal thing, but they're stuck going, can you validate for me how this actually matters eternally? Can you explain how this is spiritual for me? So as you're looking to have that perfect love that casts out fear, just make sure you got both planes, the vertical plane and the horizontal plane.
The neat thing about this is that it creates a cross. I mean, it's not a new idea, but there's this vertical and there's this horizontal, which creates an intersection. And there's something, I mean, if God is love and he came as a living sacrifice, it's when you have both that you're actually sacrificing of who you are in some way. So with validation, I think we can end up, if we're just on one, it can be very dutiful. It is like, I have to love all these people, like, you know, or I have to, I didn't read my Bible, and now it becomes like, I don't know if I'm completing enough of my list of obligations. But if you sit in that intersection of loving God and loving others, you have to sacrifice something, and you're sacrificing you. You become the sacrifice. You're basically in that intersection going, this is what I was created to do. This is why I'm here. And that becomes a really interesting place to live your life from when you're like, this is all for God and others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just took a peek at my watch. We're already almost at noon, so I'm going to take us to a place where we'll finish here in like 2 or 3 minutes. When I think about loving perfectly, so loving God, loving each other, I just want to stop and let Pac know how proud I am of you. You'll remember last week that I mentioned with a little bit of fear and trembling that I had a meeting on Monday where we're going to talk about budget, and then a board meeting on Wednesday with the board to tweak some of that stuff. And here's what I was intending to have to do. I thought after 2 weeks of us not meeting together, there would be such a downward trajectory in our finances that we would have to go into damage control mode and start to change a lot of things. And on Tuesday, after Dave ran the numbers together, he said these last 2 Sundays have been as strong as ever.
Wow.
Which is
That's
just incredible.
Yeah.
That's
It blessed my socks off because it changes how we get to think in this season as that continues, as people shift into online giving or direct deposit or whatever that might be. Because and it's the bigger question that we'll end with in a second, but for Pack, how do we want to come out of this season? Because we will. The overwhelming majority of us, by far, will come out of this season.
Mhm.
So who do you want to be then? Who do you want Pack to be? Do you want us to come out and go, okay, we're about 4 months away from getting our heads back above water and then starting to do something in Dauphin, which, by the way, I saw on Facebook a couple people in Dauphin at least are watching, so that's exciting to me. Or do we want to come out of this like just coiled with energy, in some senses not having skipped a beat, so on mission and just ready to go? And early indications from our church family are that it's the second one. That when we finally do get together, and how much fun is that going to be? And we get to start going again the way that we used to. We're going to be just ready to crank the afterburners on. So bless you, Pack, for that.
Yeah.
But then on a micro level, and here's where we'll just quickly chime in, each of us, where do you see yourself changing in this season as you move from validation to transformation? When this is all said and done, what do you want to have changed about yourself, and how are you using the season to change that?
For me, I have been reflecting on my prayer life and how I want it to look different. I think it's cool that even in these times, God is working it for good, and just, drawing our hearts closer and revealing what are the areas you want to grow with me, and just that invitation. And so that's an area that I'm currently focusing on. What in my schedule do I have to let go of to invest into this? And it's not a let go because this is a lesser thing. I'm actually attaining a greater thing, and so just, with God's wisdom in that.
Cool.
I like that.
Doug?
I think for me, it's mostly in some of it has to do with time, like money. Obviously, there's some things that aren't. You're still going to need gas and groceries and things, but you get to re-examine your life as an opportunity for God to move it in areas that maybe have been consumed in spots that have been, I guess, almost like a time audit of your life in some ways. And you get to put it all back on the table and go, I used to love that, or God, what do you think about this? And kind of move from there. So I'm just positioning, I think, we're ready. I mean, we've already changed our diet. We've done that a few months ago. We're changing how we spend our time together, me and Karis, my wife, walks and things like this, small things that we've enjoyed and are going to continue to do. And then also just what does that mean for us here in Portage and the world around us? So that's a bigger question, which we're allowing God to speak into.
Cool.
What about you?
I'm resisting the urge to make a Tim LaHaye crack. For me, there's been this weird thing that I'm actually less anxious and less full of fear and worry than I was a month ago.
Huh.
So why is that?
Yeah. Wow.
Well, it's because in this changing of pace and being able to understand what really matters, I'm not moving at breakneck speed from thing to thing that doesn't matter a bit. Instead, I'm moving intentionally from this thing to thing that matters eternally, and I'm getting more time to spend with God. So there's a lesson in that for me, that when the pandemic hits and your anxiety level goes down, something was messed up before.
That's so
right?
that's so true.
I need to understand more what that is. I think early indications are about prayer and Bible reading, but I was always pretty good with that. I think it's probably more with schedule, looking at the schedule, going, what am I doing on the schedule so that people will validate me? And what am I actually doing so that I can transform myself or other people?
I love that.
Where in my schedule am I loving God and loving others? And when is it about something else, some sort of weird cultural expectation?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll end there. You don't have to go back to how you were.
Yeah.
And at the end of this, when it is all over, and it will be all over, and so many of us will come out so much more unscathed than we could ever imagine, who are you going to be? Well, you get to choose now. So thanks for joining us. We're going to let Sonia close us off in prayer.
God, we just thank you that you're present. We thank you that you are with us and that you are for us. And I think of just that imagery of you traveling before us in these times. But as you travel before us, God, you continue to invite us into more of your transformation through your love, God, through your mercy, through your wisdom. And so I just pray for all the hearts, God, just that are engaging right now, that you would remind them, God, that you are with them. You give them the strength and the courage. And so give us your eyes to see and your ears to hear, And we just want to say we love you, God. Thanks for who you are. Amen.
Awesome. Well, goodbye, everybody. But we got one more special guest who needs to.
Oh, get your
wow,
Facebook.
you saved the
your
best for
bucks.
last there, buddy.
He's got
Good stuff.
like the hat.
Troy spotting. We shall see you online and next week and Monday night as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.